Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra versus iPhone 16 Pro Max versus Xiaomi 15 Ultra speed test, triple speed test. Let's find out which one comes out on top in this video. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and let's go ahead and begin with a boot up test. So I'm going to boot them all up. I'm going to attempt to anyway, all at the same time. So I'll just bring these three phones together and I'll hit their power buttons at the same time in 3, 2, go, and see which one could get there first. Now just make sure all are held down. There's the Samsung, there's the Apple, and there's the Xiaomi device all the way on the right. You could see that anti-reflective property on the Galaxy S25 Ultra standing out pretty easily. And it looks like the Xiaomi 15 Ultra booted up first. That was a close race between these two over here, with the iPhone lagging way behind to turn on amongst these three. So it goes 1 on the right, 2 on the left, and then the iPhone right smack dab in last place. So that's how that's going to go for the boot up test. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at biometric speed and which one does this fastest. So we'll start with the Samsung, and you'll see right in, there's a slight, very small delay from seeing the face and going in, although that probably could be changed via the animations. So if you did go ahead and turn them off, that probably could be changed. Now, if I go ahead and hold down here, you'll see the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor very fast. So a pretty good overall setup, very easy to get in. And then with Face ID, this is probably going to be the slowest of the bunch. As you go ahead and look, you do have to swipe. Of course, you don't have to hit the power button. You can just raise to wake and then swipe in. It's very fast and efficient, so I don't have a real issue with it. It's just, it's not the fastest of the bunch. And then the Xiaomi 15 Ultra also has a quick face unlock. You look at it, it goes right in. And of course, you can see an animation there as well. So this is a lot like the Samsung when it comes to the unlocking speed. If I go ahead and press down, you can easily get right in there. And of course, it just kind of flies in. So overall, I would say the Samsung and the Xiaomi are pretty close in terms of the unlocking speed, with the iPhone slightly slower. But the iPhone's the only one with the infrared Face ID up there that's definitely maybe more convenient for some people. So they definitely stand out as being like their own thing. Whereas these kind of use similar fingerprint sensors and ways of unlocking through the cameras themselves. While they're not that easy to fool anymore like they used to be, still I kind of don't really trust the cameras as much as I do the fingerprint sensors. When looking at the general UI, I do think One UI 7 has come a very long way. It's probably my favorite of these three in terms of kind of how fast it feels. It just flies through the entire OS, no hiccups, no issue. It kind of like balances speed and smooth. So if you want both things in one package, that's really it. Now I like iOS 18's polish. I think it's a very polished operating system. It gets updated very frequently. However, I don't feel like its way of moving along is as fast as the Samsung over there, but definitely feels very animation wise, very polished and nice. Everything's consistent across the board. Now, I would say that the Xiaomi kind of feels a little bit more relaxed, similar to iOS. However, you can go in and change the animations and settings. If you go down to display and you scroll down to the refresh rate, you can change that. And then also, we go back, we can go to animations up here. Let's go ahead and go to animations. Animation speed, it was actually in the home screen settings. You can change it to a relaxed, balanced, or fast. So you can improve that, but out of the box, this one feels a lot like iOS. And I have found generally that it feels pretty quick most of the time. So all of these definitely feel snappy in their general operations. All right, so let's go ahead and do our triple speed test. Now my hand might get in a little bit of the way because I got to use 3 fingers, but let's go ahead and do calendar. And you can see that look like the Samsung, Xiaomi, and then the iPhone. And let's go ahead and swipe up out of here. And I do believe dark mode is on the Samsung. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave dark mode on all of them. Let's go ahead and put dark mode on this phone as well. So we'll go ahead and turn that on. And let's go ahead and go into clock now. 3, 2, and go. And that one again was close between these two, with the iPhone with the slowest animations. Of course, I am on balance, so the animations are going to be kind of somewhere in between fast and relaxed on the Xiaomi phone. Let's go into calculator and that one was pretty close. They all do. I like how they all have their own like little style. Like their calculators all look different, which is kind of cool. The Xiaomi phone with like all these features in your face. So to me, that looks a little bit less clean. But let's go ahead and swipe up out of here. All right, so let's head into Instagram on all three. 3, 2, go. And you can see, I think it was these two were like a tie, and then the iPhone last place. Let's go over here to my profile page on all of them. As we scroll through, the iPhone is the only one with that. Well, I mean, these are two Android phones on the right and left, but the iPhone is the only one that kind of feels like the scrolling is a little bit slower because, of course, iOS runs a little bit different. And let's go ahead and go into YouTube here on all three. And I'm going to go straight over to trending for all of these. So let's go to trending. And you could see iOS with the slower scroll. And all of them do a great job. These are all excellent media phones, as all of them are incredibly big and beautiful displays. So as we scroll through, everything looks pretty good. Let's swipe up out of there. It's so hard to see the animations difference. There's almost none. Let's go to App Store, Play Store. And if we go over here to apps over here, you'll see as we scroll through, pretty nice effects. The Samsung over there flying. I do feel like the Samsung is the speediest of the three. It just feels that way to me. It's probably because that overclocked Galaxy chip, as well as One UI 7 speeding things up. Let's go into X. And One UI 7 is going to be coming to a bunch. That was first on the Samsung. A bunch on a bunch of Samsung devices on April. I think it's April 10th. Let's go ahead and take a look at the profile page. That was all the way on the right, then the Samsung and iPhone. Let's swipe up out of here. We'll go into Amazon, 3, 2, go. And I think that was over here, then the Samsung, then over here. We'll swipe up out of here. We'll go into Brawl Stars on all three. And you'll see game modes are triggered on all of these. With the Samsung and the iPhone, I think that was the Samsung. This is hard to see, bro. You're going to have to slow this down and tell me if I'm getting some of these wrong. I don't usually do triple, but this is exciting to see like how they stack up all comparatively to each other. Let's go into Groupon. And I think that was over here, here, and then here. Let's go ahead and do categories. And let me get True Tone off because I definitely know that's on, or it's not. Oh, I didn't know it. The screen looks a little yellower, so I thought True Tone was on. So I guess the whites are a little bit more white on the other two. Let's scroll down. You'll see not a big difference there. Let's go into Dead Trigger 2, 3, 2, go. And you'll see fastest on the Samsung. Then it was the iPhone and then the Xiaomi phone. So it was here, here, and here. And once again, the Samsung in the lead. And let's head up out of here. And Samsung Knights stand up because that phone is rocking. The Galaxy is. That was a pretty close draw between the Xiaomi and the Galaxy, with the iPhone once again in last place. This is crazy because years ago, no phone was touching the iPhone. Let's go into RTS here, Race the Sun. And again, these two neck and neck with basically a draw. Again, those are both 8 Elite chip phones, so they do have the same GPU, so it's not super surprising that they're loading at about the same time. Once in the game, no major issues between both. I do think the iPhone has been losing a lot of these apps. So that would mean that when you're generally just chugging along throughout your day, popping apps in and out, these two phones on the right and left are going to feel faster. The iPhone's still polished, nice animations, but it's going to feel slower. That's just all there is to it. I generally don't like how the iPhone doesn't take advantage of the screen size. I wish it would give us more multitasking features, but it was a Samsung here, Xiaomi, and now we're getting the iPhone coming there in last place on Call of Duty. I wonder if it's because I have more apps downloaded on the iPhone, but I don't have like a ton of apps. I have a ton of apps on all of them. So let's go into PUBG Mobile, 3, 2, and go. See what happens here. And it's so obvious. I don't know if you see it on screen here, but the anti-reflective properties on the Samsung for the screens, I know we're not talking about screens, but it's so obvious to see. It's definitely leading the pack with the screen tech. So it looked like the Xiaomi was in the lead, but no, Samsung says, slow down, big boy. Xiaomi phone over there, I'm definitely going to be a little bit faster because I have that overclocked for Galaxy chip with the iPhone slightly behind, but not incredibly so. All of these are beast phones, but no cop-outs. The 8 Elite has taken the lead. I cannot wait to see what the iPhone 17 Pro Max brings later this year. Let's look over here. And once again, these two going head to head over here on the right and the left, with the Samsung taking the W again over there. And okay, some people might say, well, one of your fingers is more dominant. Well, the thing is that if it was more dominant, that would make sense. But all these apps loading first on the Samsung, I don't know about that. I'm pretty sure not every time one finger is hitting it perfectly faster. So let's go into Geekbench 6. That one was the iPhone. That was funny. Let's swipe up out of here and let's go into Speed Test Net, and you'll see that one was the right. Then these two. Let's go into, and again, if I call any of them wrong, call me out. Let's go into 3D Mark. And I think that was the Xiaomi, Samsung, iPhone. Let's go into InShot. Those two on this side were tied with the iPhone in last. So I think the iPhone's iOS animations, I don't know, they're just too slow. It slowed it down. It didn't really win this test. I would say, honestly, based on what I've seen, I think the Samsung won this round for sure. The Samsung followed very, very tightly by the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, with the iPhone feeling the slowest of the three, just for launching apps day to day. I think these 8 Elite phones probably would be similar if I threw the OnePlus 13 in here. These phones are just taking the lead. So it's time to see what Apple brings with the 17 Pro Max, Ultra, whatever they want to call that phone. Let's take a look at RAM management now. All right, so let's go through the apps on the Samsung. We are looking at 12 gigs of RAM. Apple definitely doesn't give you 12 gigs of RAM, but Samsung does. However, Samsung didn't upgrade to its 16 gigs of RAM, which I do think that it should get. It would be a nice change for the device, and Brawl Stars does that pretty much every time. There's X, there's Play Store, there's YouTube. Instagram was loading the feed, but overall you can see with the Good Lock module, I was able to swipe in and out very fast, very efficiently. That was excellent performance. Nobody's going to care too much about that. Also with the Edge panels over here, we can split screen modes. You can also pop view while split screening. So I can have Instagram open here. I could bring this over here. I can bring an application in the pop view right here, and I could do some AI stuff there. And while I'm doing that, I can go grab my calendar, pop that right there, and also bring this down and around. And you could see I could have multiple apps open. So this thing is a multitasking powerhouse. So even though it doesn't have 16 gigs of RAM, you could see everything still runs just fine. All right, so let's see how the iPhone 16 Pro Max does. So while I did talk about how its animations are a little bit slower in terms of speed, I do like how they look when you go back between the apps. They're pretty nice, except for that little weird blinking, or that little weird effect that happened right there. But generally, they don't hold that same lead they used to back in the day, because these phones nowadays, especially in the last like 2 years, have really caught up in the animations. Although I still think Apple is playing at the very top of that segment in terms of like really smooth animations. They're still at the very top. It's just other phone makers have definitely caught up. Let's take a look at Xiaomi 15 Ultra now. So HyperOS definitely has shockingly nice animations. I'm definitely not super disappointed at all. They look pretty good. Although this swipe right here, let's go ahead. I don't see anything reloading. And you can see right there, if I go to dead trigger, everything's loading just fine. So far, nothing. Brawl Stars does that on basically every application. Amazon was reloading its page, probably to showcase more products to purchase. If I go over here, Instagram loading the feed as expected. And if I go over here to clock, that's good. And calendar. So this performed just like the other two, essentially, basically the same. So 16 gigabytes of RAM over here has the highest of the three. But generally, that doesn't really make a major difference for most use cases. So all three of these did very good in the RAM management. I think the Samsung did probably the top, with the iPhone slightly behind and the Xiaomi phone in third. But let me know your thoughts on that down below in the comments. Well, let's take a look at the final Geekbench 6 results, and you can see 9071 on the multi-core for the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, and that is outdoing the Xiaomi 15 Ultra at 8647, with the iPhone last place with 8380. However, if we do take a look at the single core, take a look at the iPhone. The iPhone actually took the victory. That phone got 3386 over the second highest, which was the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, and then the Samsung. So all of these are very tightly matched, but I would say that the Samsung has the highest multi-core, which would make it the most powerful phone, as that higher multi-core is where it really tends to go ahead and power those things. So I'm going to give it to the Samsung in that, but for day-to-day use, the iPhone has the highest single core. So let's go ahead and take a look at 3D Mark now on all three. We'll go ahead and run a Wildlife Extreme test. So if I go ahead and do this right now, a Wildlife Extreme, you will see in just a second what we can produce in terms of the graphics. So I'll be back when they are done, all three of these. Very clearly, the iPhone was in last place. It's also proven by its actual results. So if you go ahead and take a look at the results, the Samsung has the highest, slightly edging out the 15 Ultra over here with 34 FPS, 34.07, 30.03. This score is better than 96% of devices. The Sammy over here, hold on, let's get back to where we were, scores better than 96. So they actually pretty much drew a draw on the Xiaomi versus the Samsung, with the iPhone only scoring better than 86. However, Apple's M series chip, like in the iPad Pros, those are even faster than all these devices. So Apple does have chips that are the quickest out there, but they're just not in the phone. The A series has been overtaken, I feel like, by the 8 Elite chip. Now, if you go to 3D Mark and you go back, let's go back here. If you take a look at the My Device section of these phones, let's go back and you go down here to where it shows the specifications. You'll see that the Apple A18 Pro chip is clocked at 4.05 gigahertz, but we do have over here an octa-core CPU that's clocked at 4.47. This is also octa-core, but this one's not for Galaxy. This is just the 8 Elite. And it's clocked in at 4.32. So there's a slight overclock for the Samsung, but the Xiaomi kind of makes up for it with the extra RAM. However, at the end of the day, if I was to call one the victor here, I think just because of that slightly overclocked chip and the highest multi-core scores, I'm going to call the victory to the Galaxy S25 Ultra. It also seemed to load the apps a little bit quicker. It was one of the faster ones to turn on, had very fast face unlock, general operating speed. It was the fastest to me. The S25 Ultra followed very tightly by the 15 Ultra. You wouldn't barely even be able to see the difference. So if you really like that camera, this phone is pretty dope too. And the iPhone is a great polished iOS experience, super fast updates, beautiful screen, great camera setup. It's just a beautiful phone. But that A18, they have been overtaken. I know people say, well, this is not, you're comparing last year's phone. iPhone comes out late in the year though. So it's like, it's one of the last ones to come out. Like the S24 Ultra was out way before the 16 Pro Max, but I get what you're saying. So we will be running it back when the 17 Pro Max comes. But now you've seen three top beasts here. And if we threw the Pixel in here, it would probably lose to all three of these. But the OnePlus would have been interesting. I wonder if I should throw in the OnePlus next time. Let me know down below in the comments section. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you all in the very next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Nick here. Be sure to be well. And peace.